I was just about to do the round actually and say, because we've got a few different faces on the call today. So Wendy from New York, we've got V from, where are you now, V?
Nannup, Western Australia.
Down south in Western Australia. And we've got Glenn, who's in the opposite end of the city to me, up in Kinross and Perth.
Yep.
And Yanni's just joined us from California. So we are here today, this morning in our time. I don't know where it is, what time it is in you guys, part of the world, but we're here to discuss the Motivation Manifesto by Brendon Burchard. A fantastic book. I read quite a few years ago now, but this is one of the things about this series that we're doing, Distilling Wisdom from Books, is it's a great joy for me to go back to the books that I remember having had a big impact on me and going through them again in more detail and reviewing them and why they had such an impact on me, and hoping to share that, and that hopefully I inspire a few other people to read those same books and learn some of the wisdom, and you may get different things out of it to what I got out of it. That's one of the joy of these books, is that we all get from it what we need and what is relevant to us at the time, things that resonate with us. Even now, things that I've reread the book, or as I'm rereading it, I'm finding things that resonate with me slightly differently to when I read it last time. Certain other things are leaping out at me. Hopefully in some way I've progressed or gained a little bit of wisdom along the way. So maybe I'm ready for the next lessons. So let's hope that's what we're doing. All right, so the Motivation Manifesto, 9 declarations to claim your personal power. Just to get a bit of an idea, we'll just go around the room. There's no naughty corners here, so no problems if you haven't had a chance to read. We've all got busy lives. Wendy, you were on the call first. Have you had a chance to start this book at all, or where are you up to with it?
Okay, or did I lock out? All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, my internet's a little, I just got a new router, so of course it's acting poorly. Yeah, I read the book. I read up to actually page the second chapter, Fear.
Yep.
In the first part. And I love it.
Yeah.
I'm like drawn into this book.
I have to confess that I was only just catching up just before the call, because I've had quite a lot going on this week, and I hadn't realized quite how big a chunk of the book that I'd asked everyone to read until I tried to do it myself. So, but I did manage to get it done just literally just before the meeting started. I finished the last page. I was speed reading. So well done, Wendy. That's a good effort. V, have you had a chance to get into this book? I know you said it's been on your bookshelf for quite a while.
Yes, so thank you for giving me the motivation to read it. And I'm pretty much I'm doing the chapter on motivation. So I've read on freedom and on fear.
Very good. Well, you gave yourself the motivation. I just gave you a little prod in the right direction. That's all.
Give me inspiration, not the motivation.
Glenn, have you had a chance to look at this book at all?
No, not at all. It wasn't until about 20 minutes ago that I decided to get onto the call, found myself free this morning. So
okay, well, that's a good bit of motivation, and hopefully we'll pass on a little bit more. So if you don't have the book, I'd highly recommend getting a copy of it. It really is a good one. Available in all bookstores and online and all the rest of it. So Yanni, are you able to speak or join us, or where are you at? So we can't hear Yanni at the moment. So maybe she's going to log out and log back in again. All right. So yeah, the first thing was he put I suppose like an introduction, the Declaration of Personal Power. So really explaining what the book's about, what to expect. This is a bit of a prelude, I suppose, to the rest of the book. And then section 1 is on human nature, which covered on freedom, on fear, and on motivation. So the first bit, the Declaration of Personal Power. We must ask, when will we be ready to ascend to another level of existence? So the theme of this book is very much, I'll just let Yanni back in. The theme of the book is very much about declaring your own Motivation Manifesto, declaring what you stand for, what you believe in, what you want out of life. And it looks like we've got
now?
Yes, we can. Hey. I don't know what happened there, Yanni. Sometimes these little glitches just occur.
Now?
Yes, we can. Well, I can. Can the rest of you hear, Yanni?
I finally got it. So finally got a physical book. I honestly just read the introduction, but so far I love it. And the first page of freedom. So I got it yesterday and I started reading it today. So
Excellent.
I love hard cover books, and most of the books nowadays is just really flimsy, but I like this. I love it.
Yeah, it's a good size, isn't it? Especially if you're traveling. I remember I read this on my Bali holiday.
It actually fits in my purse. I love it.
I like to buy a book at the airport and take it with me on holiday, and so I get, usually get a chance to read a bit on a plane or in the waiting rooms, and so it makes use of that travel time. It looks like we've got Carly joining us as well. Good morning, Carly, and you're calling us from Newcastle, New South Wales, I believe. Is that right?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, we've got callers online here from New York and California and down south, Western Australia and around Perth. So welcome everybody. So yeah, the declaration of personal power is really that sort of starting point. What do we stand for? What do we want from our lives? What are we willing to invest our time and effort into? And so he says we must ask, when will we be ready to ascend to another level of existence? So what is it that we really want? That's, again, following on from the previous book that we looked at, is do we have, Simon Sinek, do we have a reason why? Do we have a noble cause? Do we have something that we're striving to achieve? So I'll just pick out a few of the points on here, and then we can see what other people maybe thought about this declaration. It is the main motivation of humankind to be free, to express our true selves and pursue our dreams without restriction, to experience what may be called personal freedom. We must govern our own lives, and when our thoughts and actions become destructive, it is our responsibility to alter or abolish them and to institute new habits as the foundations for a freer, happier life. And I highlighted this bit in orange, which people, if you've been working with me on these books, this is this was a standout statement for me. We must exert our power, improvising how we think and how we interact with the world. So very much this starting point to motivation is realizing that it comes from within and it's a choice. It's up to us. So we either become trapped at this level of life, or we choose to ascend to a higher plane of consciousness and joy. In this ailing and turbulent world, we must find peace within and become more self-reliant in creating the life we deserve. Funnily enough, my theme of these calls is creating your ideal life. So it is very much based on, I suppose, some of this philosophy has absorbed itself into my psyche over the years. And I am a great believer that we do create our own lives by our own choices. And so that gives us personal power. If we blame everybody else for our situations, and we blame the government, we blame the wife, we blame the tax man, we blame all the other people around, we're actually denying our own power. Because when we take responsibility for it, if we actually go, well, if I'm in a mess, I've created this mess, but that also means you have the power to get out of it again and to improve situations. So it's actually quite liberating to take responsibility for things, even though it might not seem like it at the time. He says we must set intentions for who we are, for what roles we wish to serve, for how we'll relate to the world. We shall meet life with full presence and power. And you know yourselves, when you feel powerful, when you feel like you're on a mission, it's a sort of self-perpetuating prophecy. You become motivated because you're working towards something and you believe you're going to get it, and suddenly you feel filled with exuberance and vitality and energy and willing to keep going. Have you experienced that? A few nodding heads, yes. So a life of greater joy, power, and satisfaction awaits those who consciously design their life. For this we shall now declare, we shall reclaim our agenda. So this is a series of declarations on different aspects. And I just love this. Without self-mastery, we are slaves to fear. With it, greatness and transcendence are ours. For this we now declare, we shall defeat our demons. So very much the things that get in the way of us achieving what we really want to achieve usually start within. It's not the external circumstances, because there are other people who have the same external circumstances who are going and doing it anyway, whatever it is we want to do. So very often it's our attitude or our reaction, our response to those external circumstances. If we don't believe we can master them, or we can master our own self-doubt or our own anxiety or our own feelings of unworthiness, if we can't master those, then we'll fail. But there are other people who are mastering them and are succeeding. So what's the difference? The difference is how they're thinking and how they're choosing to apply their energy and their focus. So most, I love this one, and this again is highlighted in orange, my friends. Most have forgotten that seeking change always requires a touch of insanity. I thought, that's me. I can relate to that one. If taking action before the perfect conditions arise, or before we receive permission, is unreasonable or reckless, then we must be unreasonable and reckless. So let's go for it. Let's be unreasonable, reckless, and insane, because it's through that sort of recklessness or insanity that great things have been achieved in the world. It's when people go, well, that's not possible. You know, the world's flat. You're going to fall off the end. It's when people go, well, I'm going to go and get in a ship and prove you wrong and sail to the end of the world. And they're all going, you're insane. You're going to fall off the end and die. Well, maybe I will, but I'm going to give it a go. And off you go. And you believe that the earth is round, and guess what? It is. So we shall advance with abandon, is that declaration. And this next declaration is one that we've talked about a lot in some of the books that we've reviewed. And that is the principle of gratitude. That when we actually are grateful for what we have already, that doesn't mean we just settle for that. It means we actually are grateful for what we have, but we're still okay to desire more, or to want to achieve more, or to become more. It doesn't mean you should be unhappy with what you've got. You can be both. You can be happy with what you've got and still strive for more. The two are not at odds with each other. They can coexist. So we shall practice joy and gratitude. Very, very powerful. And you find most of the religious teachings will also hammer that point home. Start off with being grateful for what you've already got. That shifts your perspective to any situation. Instead of focusing on all the stuff that you don't have or how bad things are, if you simply shift to, well, at least I've got this, or at least I can enjoy that, or, you know, I've got a roof over my head today. And it's incredible how powerful that simple shift can be in terms of us mastering our own thoughts and feelings. So that sort of leads on really to the next one with giving your word. And you remember we did the 4 agreements. You talked about you being true to your word as one of the first agreements, I think it was. You know, your word is important. And so when you commit to something and you follow it through, there's a power in that. So this next declaration was, we shall not break our integrity. You know, the way that we interact with people, the way that our principles, once we live by that, then we're stronger for it. We're truer. We relate better to people. People know where they stand with us. We build stronger bonds and friendships, and therefore we improve our network, our surrounding group of people who can help us to get to where we want to go. And then the next one is a big word, which has many meanings to all of us, I'm sure. We could do a whole session just on this, is the topic of love. So the word love has different meanings to everybody, but I thought this was interesting. When we were hurt, we felt that love was somehow diminished or damaged, but hurt has nothing to do with love, and love is unaffiliated with and unaffected by pain. Ego was hurt, not love. So if you've ever had a relationship breakup or a friendship breakup, it's really more about ego. The love is still there. Love exists endlessly anyway, all around us, but sometimes we don't focus on it. Sometimes we let ego and get in the way. Love is divine. It is everywhere, ever present and abundant and free. It is a spiritual energy that at this very moment is flowing through the universe, through us, through our enemies, even through our families, through billions of souls. It was never absent from our lives. So I thought that was very interesting. We shall amplify love. Just a couple more declarations. Holding true to our ideals and showing leadership, aiming to inspire ourselves and others. In the process of doing that, this is the next declaration: we shall inspire greatness. And I'm just rushing through now and to give everyone else a chance to chip in with it, with this one, with this whole section. The next part was the magical qualities of this very moment. So again, we've talked about this in other books, but one we will be going on to at some point is The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. When you focus on being present, being truly present, and it's so easy not to, there's so many distractions all around us, but when you focus on truly being present, time seems to slow down. Isn't it interesting what the concept of time? You go on a holiday, and so you're on a 2-week holiday. At the beginning of the holiday, it seems like you've got this endless amount of holiday in front of you. And as you get to about 2 days before you're about to leave and go home again, you start thinking, oh no, the holiday's running out. It's going too fast. It's not, each day is going at the same pace 24/7. It's just that our perception of the time available either seems to expand or contract depending on whether we're looking forward to something and excited about something, or whether we're worried about something, or feeling negative towards something. So time is a very interesting concept, but by focusing on the present, we can slow time. So his overall sort of declaration here. Oh, my helper's bringing me a cup of tea. Thank you so much, darling. That's lovely. Because all presenters need cups of tea brought to them, don't they? Much of the negative energy that pervades our lives comes from despising the inevitable hardships of change. And I love this. This is in orange, people. This is important, this bit. Let us remember that humanity's story has only two perennially recurring themes: struggle and progress. We mustn't wish the end of the former, as the latter would be buried alongside it. So let us be clear that the small, complaining, undisciplined part of ourselves, the distracted character wanting nothing but convenience and ease, is unfit to be the ruler of our new destiny. So we don't want our destiny to be ruled by that whinging part of us, do we? That part that's, gets distracted and can't be bothered and all the rest of it. We want our destiny to be controlled by the best part of ourselves, the part that believes we can do stuff. So gaining access to this new vibrancy, joy, and freedom that's available to all of us, it rests on our shoulders. For only two things can change our lives: either something new comes into our lives, or something new comes from within. Let us not hope for mere chance to change our story. Let us summon the courage to change it ourselves. Some will stand in our way, but we mustn't hide or minimize ourselves any longer. Let us believe faithfully that our dreams are worth any struggle, and that it is our time to free ourselves and rise to glory. Now, who's not motivated after reading that introduction? I'll open it up to the floor. Who has any comments or thoughts about that? That beginning. How powerful is that? Who'd like to go?
I'll go. I love Brendon. I have been following him for years, and even though I have read the Life's Ticket, or what I think it was called, was one of his first books, and it actually is a story, an actual metaphor of his life and what happened with him. And the deal is to give the book away, so I've given it away. So I don't have a copy. I've got to get another one. But I just love the way he presents, the way he talks. It's almost like he is a preacher, but he's got a really powerful message that goes beyond any kind of religion, any particular religion. So probably the two things I pick up most from this beginning, the declaration, is we shall reclaim our agenda, because I know he talks a lot about you take your morning, you don't give it to other people, you don't check social media, you don't check your emails even, because your emails are other people's agendas.
It's so easy to do that though, isn't it? It's so easy to fall into that trap.
Oh my gosh, yes it is.
Because the phone pings at you and you go, oh, yes, somebody's commented, I say, I like something. What's that all about? It's been so well set up, hasn't it, social media, as the ultimate distractor.
Yes, it is. And it's about, I have been thinking about it. I tried it a few times, but I'm committing to actually just, with social media, I'm going to allow a window of time. And when the window's up, it'll be a maximum of 10 minutes. I'm off it. I got 10 minutes to check it, like maybe twice a day or something. That's it.
So if I want your attention, I've got to put pretty powerful, compelling headlines in there to get your attention.
Well, you're just going to have to wait till I check. So that's my commitment from this already. We're only half an hour, not even half an hour in, but that's
well
my
done.
commitment.
That's good. Has anyone else picked up on anything that they want to make as a commitment as a result of hearing that? Any other comments on that first section?
For me, it's being present, you know, and I've actually have experienced slowing time, and I actually always wanted to, like, what was that? Like, you know, when I feel like I've done so many things and it's like a couple of minutes, you know, and I was like, wait, how long have I been zoned out? And I don't know if that's the flow or when, you know, when you connect to something, but I mean, being present, I think I've experienced that just short periods of time where, you know, it's so peaceful at the same time, and being able to be like that. And I think that kind of is the freedom of the everyday, like Veronica was explaining, you know, like it's just that freedom of the present, you know. So, because when you are present, you are free of everything that it was describing. So, me being present.
I think I couldn't help but smile at the irony of the fact that you were frozen out of the call at the beginning and weren't present. And we had to wait for you to be able to be present. But it was well worth the wait, because we got your input when you were able to join. So well done. Very good. Anyone else want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I highlighted all of these things on my iPad because I want to copy and paste them, and I'm actually going to put them in first person. And so I can read it first thing in the morning. So I can say, you know, today I shall defeat my demons. Today I shall, and I will put that as like kind of an affirmation and a reminder to remember to have my own personal freedom, and like as a reminder of how to do it, you know, and not get sucked into other people's emergencies, which as a mother of 4 and a wife has a tendency to eclipse what I want to do sometimes. So I can have that as a reminder. You know.
That's excellent. That's a really good way to use the book. I highly recommend everyone to do that. And I think later in the book, if I remember, it's been a few years since I read it. I'm pretty sure that's what Brendon is really recommending that we do, is that you take this This, you know, who was it? Mark Twain said that, I think it was Mark Twain, that knowledge is no use unless it's applied. You know, if we don't do something with this knowledge, we can read all the books we want, but it's how do we apply it in a meaningful way in our lives? And that's a great start, what you suggested there. If you borrow his words and then, you know, mold them into your own, modify them as you need to suit your circumstances, your situation. But it certainly gives you a great starting point, because most people would have not put the thought, he's put, you know, years of study and so on and thought process into creating this work, this IP, and to have that declaration put in front of you and then to be able to just use that and modify it, that's great. It gives you a great starting point. I mean, you can still change it in any way you want to suit your own situation, but it's a terrific sort of foundation to get you going. So well done. That's good application. Glenn, you hadn't had a chance to read the book. How did you react to this first introduction?
Yeah,
highlights of it anyway, what I picked out.
Yeah, for me, it's more reclaiming our agenda or my agenda. You know, there's things that I want to do, but you know, our situation with the business, it's, you know, I could be there now. We could be there 50 hours a week, and there's always plenty to do. But it's a matter of I need to do other things, and not spend so much time in that business. Although it's a family owned and run business, it's great working within the family, but at the same time, you still need other outside sort of influences, not so influences, but other outside context. So you know what I do with that, and being present. So yeah, when I do get into that sort of situation within the business where I'm sort of down the back end of the business doing the things that I do, it's a pretty lonely place sometimes. So I sort of, you know, get out and about, you know. And one thing, and I met with a guy yesterday, he works in the mental health space, through his own experiences, and it's like he does a lot of sort of, not coaching, I suppose, but sort of peer support, and he just goes walking with people, and he gets paid to go walking with people and just discussing things. He said the best thing is, he said, you're just listening to these people and getting out and feeling the sun on your face and feeling the breeze on your face, and it slows time down for him completely. So it's great for him as well, from what he's experienced. And I sort of, you know, echoed a lot of his experiences with mine over the years as well. So you just sort of, you know, open the back door of the building and go out and feel the breeze in the back of the building, as long as the mechanic's on the road and not cleaning a car. You know, so that, you know, get out and get that fresh air and meet some new people. And if you're going to go for a coffee, go and sit. You know, you do this as well. You go and sit by the beach and have a cup of coffee. Don't sit in a shopping centre. Yeah, somewhere else where you can, you know, feel nature and that sort of thing. Get out.
There's you've nailed a few really good points there, actually, Glenn. One, just to go back, one first of all is, there's an old saying that nobody ever dies with an empty in tray. There's always plenty of work waiting for us there if we want to keep on working and find things to do. But you have to put yourself first sometimes. So yeah, taking control of your agenda is very important. And I love that example about going for walks. It's definitely a tool that I've used a few times. Another one, if you're a parent, is if you've got to drive the kids to school, is having those conversations in the car, because you've got a captive audience. I think that's one of the biggest things, is we don't set aside that time to have meaningful conversations. And for me, one I love doing is going for a walk with my wife, taking the dog for a walk, because it gives us the chance to combine fresh air and exercise with beautiful appreciation of nature around us, and at the same time to be able to discuss, you know, what we're doing, what's our future direction, what are we working towards, so what are our common goals.
Yeah,
so it's a really good idea to combine those things. And I've always felt, and I've always sort of recommended this to my clients, is to make that time and space available where you've got some nature around you, whether it's water or ocean or the beach, or you know, just being surrounded by nature. And V's certainly gone on a major tree change just recently. It does open up the creative juices and the chance to reflect on things and step back from the busyness of the world and all the distraction that's out there. Yeah. Carly, did you want to add anything to what we've just discussed? If you're able to, she might be busy preparing for our next meeting.
I just like what you just said about children and in the car, because basically we as parents may not discuss money with children and the logical way of creating it, or spiritual way, or however you want to put it. And so basically we don't, as children, don't always learn the process. We're maybe watching our parents showing us, but to hear it as well is such a gold piece of information, and learning it. And children are so free and light and learn so quickly. So imagine teaching your children even with money for school shoes, money for the school canteen, and the exchange of value and energy between whatever they're purchasing and the person and the connection they're making in that exchange. Like imagine teaching that at school, even with the school canteen. I mean, growing up, we weren't given money for the school canteen because mum couldn't afford it. So we missed that opportunity that might be so simple to other people and natural, but to be able to purchase something for yourself is so joyful. And then the exchange in that, and the fact you're giving it to the other person for the service they've just done for you, and then you're enjoying what you're eating or received. Doesn't have to be food, but wearing or...
Well, that's very much speaking to the joy and gratitude declaration, isn't it?
Yeah, so that whole piece, and imagine taking that into adulthood with no concern around what money represents in a bigger paradigm of lack. Like there would be just true joy around money.
Yeah, I think both you and Glenn have hit on something there as well, as the reminder that in our society, we've allowed too much distraction to get in the way, and it's broken down traditional familial values. I had a great realization when I was doing some film work with some Indigenous people. I was interviewing Aboriginal elders a few years ago, and I really started to understand a bit more about their culture. Just the realization that they sit around the campfires, and you have that opportunity where the wise elders are passing on these nuggets of information, these gems of, you know, how to live a better life to the younger people. And we miss that, don't we? We don't have that sort of that opportunity so much these days for our wizened elders to pass on their life experience, and for us to leverage from their learning, from their lifetime of learning, and to have these sort of jewels of realization passed down to us. And it's something very important. So you know, if you're a parent and you've got the chance to do something with your child, like go on a fishing trip or go canoeing or ride a horse or whatever it might be, it's the discussions that you have during those moments of doing something together, or just being in each other's company, away from the normal hustle and bustle of the world. That's when you get the chance to pass on your values and your wisdom, and for them to absorb some of that understanding of what the world's about, as far as you've learned it anyway.
Just on that, on the Indigenous, you know that I've worked in that space with the traditional owners here in WA with the mining royalties and that sort of thing. And I think you may have touched on it once or twice as well, that talking to those traditional owners and the elders, and their law grounds and how that works with the teachings of bringing the boys up from into manhood and that sort of stuff. And I met with one day, and he said all this wouldn't have been so much of a problem. He said, but then someone introduced money. And he said it just changed the way that a lot of the traditional owners in that area or around Australia now look at it all. And he said, we don't really need it. I think it was you mentioned to me as well that they've been walking around for 60,000 years, stubbing their toes on it, and hadn't even realised it was there until someone dug it up and realised we could make something with it. So yeah, it's quite interesting. You meet those people that, you know, law to them. Even the girls that would go out on law duties, they never actually got to the ground. They would stay away. It was a men only environment, but they, you know, the deep feeling about why it needed to be passed on. It was worth more than anything else that they've got through cash, through royalties, or anything else.
Yeah, I think it's just genuine appreciation for our planet and for our lives on it, and for the simple things in life. You know, the Beatles sang, "The best things in life are free." It's easy to forget that and overlook it, isn't it? So again, going back to not being distracted, to setting our own agenda, to us deciding what's important rather than responding to fake emergencies and other people's issues and emails and text messages and social media and all that. We've got a lot of noise out there these days, more than ever.
My father once gave me my best advice. The best advice, I didn't have him around because I'm from a broken family. So the little bit that I spent with him, I really appreciated. And as I was going into a teenagerhood and I was having trouble with my parents, my father said to me, "This is what you do. Yes them to death and do what you want."
Yep, very good.
You know, and
yep, go on.
I found freedom in that.
Yeah.
I was no longer bound by what they were saying. I just said, okay, and out I went.
Well, we'll come to that in a minute, about sometimes being held back by well-meaning relatives and family and friends who want the best for you, want to keep you safe, and want to avoid you suffering the indignity of failure or humiliation. And so sometimes they can actually rob you of your dreams in the process. Just before we move on, I've been rewatching the series Yellowstone. I'm a great fan of Taylor Sheridan's work. I don't know if any of you seen the series Yellowstone, but Kevin Costner stars in it, and it's a tremendous series because he's running a ranch in Montana, and he's got the American Indians on his doorstep there, the tribe that he's been dealing with through generations. And so there's a lot of wisdom about that coming from both from him as a sort of elder statesman of the family, and also of the neighboring American Indians as well, and how they pass things on to their younger members of the family, set against a backdrop of money grabbing, you know, power and intrigue and violence and all the rest of it, all the juicy stuff that makes these series so interesting to watch. It has been described as The Godfather in a Western setting. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. But he's now doing a series of spin-off series, and Taylor Sheridan's written all this himself. He's an incredibly talented writer.
If you look at that, not much has changed in modern society, really.
Well, there's a lot of deep lessons in this program, I can tell you. There's a lot of reflections like that, and, you know, realizations about how we're running our society and what's really important and so on. And you've got this beautiful backdrop of the Montana scenery, which is just breathtakingly spectacular. Anyway, that was just a little sidebar. So we'll see how far we get, because we're sort of more than halfway through. And I think I was a bit overambitious in what I was trying to get us to cover today. But let's start with on section 1, which is on human nature, freedom, fear, and motivation. Well, we'll get through the next chapter at least anyway, we'll see. See how far we go. Chapter 1 is on freedom. So starts with a quote from someone you've all heard of, Mr. Gandhi. "I want freedom for the full expression of my personality." So a vibrant, genuine, and purposeful life is the right of all humankind. It is our right, isn't it? It's something we can claim, we can make it happen. And as we've already said, a lot of it is whether we set our own agenda, what we choose to focus on, having a purpose. That's all stuff that we can control. With all stuff we are responsible for our own feelings, thoughts, and actions. I like this. It is the calling of each man and woman who draws breath to have a grand vision for our lives, and to each day claim the vastness of that vision. Now, there's some people who, to play devil's advocate, might sort of say, oh, well, that's all well and good having a grand vision, but, you know, I just want to get through each day and enjoy being here today, enjoy being in the present. So there could be some contradictions here. You know, if you're focused on being in the present, does that mean you can't still have a grand vision? Of course you can. You can still be present, and you can still have an idea of what you're working towards, what you're striving to achieve. So humankind's main motivation is to seek and experience personal freedom. When I read that, I immediately thought of William Wallace and Braveheart shouting out freedom as they were chopping him to bits. It really is, when you think about it. You know, there's so many examples throughout history. It's all been about struggle to be able to choose, to exercise that right to have free choice. You know, wars, one country conquering another and imposing their will on some other nationality. It's all been about fighting for freedom, and freedom essentially is the right to choose what we want to do and how we want to live our lives. So he says, choosing our own aims and seeking to bring them to fruition creates a sense of vitality and motivation in life. The only things that derail our efforts are fear and oppression. So if your country's been conquered by another country, or you're fighting for your own existence, like the people of Ukraine at the moment fighting against Russia, you're fighting oppression. Fighting fear, or, well, fear is, we'll talk more about fear in a minute, but fear mostly is within. It's our reaction, our perspective on things that may or may not happen. And how many times do we worry about stuff that might not even happen, and then realize later that we wasted all that time and energy worrying about stuff that didn't even happen anyway? We've all done it. And how frustrating and what a waste of time is that. So personal freedom, our goal, means living freely by crafting a life on our own terms. This is bullet pointed in this section. Being free in the moment from oppressions of past hurts and present anxieties. So the oppression might not be just in a military sense, or you know, one country dominating another, but we are oppressed by our own hurts and our own anxieties if we allow ourselves to be. Personal freedom means being light-hearted and spontaneous as free spirits. Courageously speaking our thoughts, feelings, and ambitions with those around us without concern about acceptance. If people value us as friends, they will accept what we say. They might not agree with what we say, but they'll accept your right to think it and say it. Enjoying our free will to pursue abundant happiness, wealth, health, achievement, and contribution. There's that big word, contribution, that keeps coming up. Freely loving whom we choose with passionate abandon. Passionate abandon, that sounds pretty racy, doesn't it? Sounds like a Mills and Boon novel. Standing freely on our own, professing and protecting our ideas and integrity. Serving a mission that we have chosen. Fighting to give our children a foundation in such freedom, building in their hearts the will to live as they choose, so that they may meet oppression with courage and opportunity with a virtuous intent to contribute. It's very noble, isn't it? Can anyone deny that these are things all humans desire and strive for? We all want the best for our children, don't we? We all want them to be happy. We want ourselves to be happy as much as we possibly can. And we want to be free to choose our career direction and our means of earning an income, and who we're going to spend our time with, and all those things. So all very valid points. We inherently know that when controlled by others, life loses its flair and we are cast into melancholy and mediocrity. Powerful stuff. If you've ever experienced at some point in your life feeling like you're being controlled by others, you might have had a bad boss or a tough work environment. It's not a very pleasant feeling, is it? And yet any of us can quit at any time. I know I've stuck at a job that I hated, and I was getting to the point where I really didn't want to go to work in the morning. And when I quit that job, had a huge weight of lifted off my shoulders, and vowed to myself I'm never going to let that happen again, where I'm stuck doing something with a irritating boss and feeling under a lot of pressure, but all because of other people's agendas. Why does freedom pull so tightly at our hearts? He asks. It is because freedom is tightly bound to the human desire for ascension, our natural drive to rise from our circumstances and actualize our goals, our potential, and our highest self. All things that make life worthwhile to great men and women, the pursuit of happiness, challenge, progress, creative expression, contribution, hard-won wisdom, and enlightenment, derive from our wanting to ascend to higher levels of being and giving. Giving, very important word there. Every human has a natural inclination to ascend to higher planes of existence, but it rests upon each of us to match that inclination with real initiative. We must remember that freedom can be achieved only by diligent will and volition. Seeking to ascend in life takes grit and resolve, struggle and courage, but to those who make the effort belong all the glories of life and history. And he adds to that, on the ground of such personal liberation stand the world's most noble figures, Gandhi and Viktor Frankl, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela. They were free even as they were imprisoned. So another theme that's come up in a few of the books that we've covered is you can imprison a person's body, but you can't imprison their mind. We're always free to choose how we think and how we want to feel and how we want to respond. So the ultimate narrative of the human species is its quest for more freedom and the related struggles to ascend to higher standards of living and relating. In such divine desires to overcome tyranny, oppression, and the limits of our own darkness and small-mindedness, we find recurrent hope for humanity. Yes, there is hope for us all. That's awesome. And what is it about these people? Their common theme. Their only guide was an internal one, a manifesto in their minds that called for the courage to be themselves and the discipline to direct their energies towards higher purposes. So this declaration here is, let us each in our own way and our own voice echo their courage and proclaim freedom as our fight, our cause, the very challenge we awaken to experience and achieve. We always need to work towards self-mastery and social prowess so that we can authentically express who we are and joyously seek what we desire of life. It is only an active self-expression and pursuit of our own aims that we can become free. However, what's the fly in the ointment here? Well, it goes on to say that we crave this sense of security, but we get that from conformity, which he says cannot be understated, is one of the greatest enemies of personal freedom. The structures and rewards of society give order to an individual. Things like job titles and promotions and money raises and all that. So you ask, so he says, what if we chase all that and believe in all that, and then one day we awake to find that those things aren't what matter the most? As we said, the best things in life are free. To ask such a question, to rattle the cage of conformity, is to invite real risk into our lives. Once freed from the cage, an animal finds itself alone, unsure of what to do, separated from a life and things that it understands. The sudden uncertainty can be paralyzing. If we had total freedom in life, what exactly would we do? Where would we go? How would we behave day to day? And what would give us meaning? These questions can be terrifying, he says. Anyone any thoughts on that? That's quite an intriguing statement, isn't it? Is conformity that much of a pull that the alternative, freedom, is terrifying?
Yeah, just thinking about what you were saying before. So I wanted to get out of a particular role, and I did mainly to get out of what I was doing. Just hadn't had enough after 17 years, and then you're out and you're free, and then you go, now what do I do?
Yeah.
And then the same thing happened 10 years later, having left the industry that I was in here, having absolutely hated it. Loved some of the people, but hated some of the management, and got out of that and went, now I've got time, I've got everything that, what can I do? And it was actually quite confronting to go, now what do I do? Now where do I go? Okay, fell into other things, probably not exactly what I wanted to do, but it's actually quite the euphoria of actually getting out of the situation for a little while, for a month or so, is fantastic. But then you suddenly go, it's quite frightening. Now what am I going to do? Which way do I go?
And we can cushion that if we can make sure we've got a few dollars in the bank to tide us through while we're figuring it out. Hence the importance of, I think it was Carly brought up money, having a little bit saved for the rainy day type of philosophy is a good idea. You've got a little bit of a buffer then. But there's so many people today living hand to mouth, aren't they? And then if they lose that job, or they get made redundant, or something, well, have they get made redundant, they get a payout. But if they suddenly lose a job unexpectedly and lose their income, that's quite traumatizing if you don't have something else you can go and do. Or is it? Is that just a state of mind? V, you wanted to say something?
I've just realized how blessed I am for the unconventional upbringing I had, because conformity's never really been a problem for me. I got into accounting as a rebellion because none of my family's got any education, no tertiary education. Most actually, none of them finished high school. So that was a bit of rebellion for me, and stepping away from that. And when I got sick of the corporate world, I guess the trick is the wisdom that I realized I had was that I made sure I had something else I wanted to go to before I got out completely. And I think that's the trick, to know what your purpose is, and to have a goal and have a go at that. And that has been very challenging. 10 years in my accounting business, and I still make nowhere near what I did in the corporate world, but I'm a hell of a lot happier. And yeah, more freedom, definitely more freedom. And conformity, yeah, I mean, people are shocked that I moved to Nanup, and it's like, well, haven't you been paying attention? For the past year, I've been going down at least once a month. It's like, it was going to happen. And yeah, and people tell me I'm brave. It's like, it was just what I needed to do. It was on the cards. And yeah.
Yeah, it was like us moving from the city to the hills. I mean, we kept, the clues were there. We kept coming up and visiting and looking at the view and going, wouldn't it be nice to have a house up here? And then a few years later, we got it. So yeah, I think you've done really well there, and it's a great observation. A good idea if you are fortunate enough, well, no, if you create the situation where you do have something lined up, ready to go to, then that makes that transition a lot easier. Sometimes that might not be available, that might be thrust upon you, and then you've got that sort of, oh, well, what do I do now? Wendy, you've got your hand up.
Yeah. A lot of this stuff spoke to me because I came from, my family was very conservative and oppressive, and wanted me to fit into a box, and I didn't quite fit there, but somehow they got me kind of into the box so I could survive, because I was a kid.
You're in a box on my screen actually at the moment, so
yes. The box was a little smaller and a lot more uncomfortable. And it wasn't actually until 5 years ago that I got out of the box. And I, even in my company and everything that I did, had a lackluster in my life. And I really wondered what was going to happen when I just stopped taking this feeling and popped out of the box. And it really did pop out of the box. And it's funny because you think, what would you do? And I actually didn't do anything different. It's how I did it that changed. And my perspective on what I was doing changed. And I realized how much freedom inside this crazy little box I thought I lived in, I actually had. My glow was maybe a little bit more brighter than that could be boxed, but I was like, wow, I actually achieved a lot in my life and I should take some credit for this. And I didn't. I always thought I was not enough. I wasn't doing enough. And that's the kind of freedom that I have recently discovered. That wasn't, so I didn't change anything. I just did it differently. It was an incredible, remarkable experience for me.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's definitely a case of when we emerge from the security or the conformity of the situation that we've been in, suddenly we can see new things, new opportunities present themselves. And I think one of the first things I do when working with clients who may be struggling a little bit with confidence is to get them to write out or review, update their CV, because it's extraordinary how little we give ourselves credit for all the stuff that we've done in our lives so far. And there's a great example for us to fall back on. We can either fill ourselves with self-doubt and, oh, what if I can't do this? What if I can't do that? Look at what you've already done. Look at all the things that you've already achieved, all the changes in jobs or moving location to live somewhere else, or, you know, dealt with a relationship breakup or loss of a loved one, or all these things that are all part of who you are today. You've survived them all. You're still here and you've learnt along the way. And so we don't pat ourselves on the back enough and give ourselves credit for all that life experience that we've accumulated. And as you do more of the adventurous things, as you take on more projects or more conceptual ideas or new things that you want to try out, with each thing, sure, there's going to be setbacks, but you learn and grow from those setbacks. I mean, he says in this is all about the struggle is what makes us grow, isn't it? I know it's a bit cliched, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger and all that, but you do grow from the struggle. And you also learn to realize, to trust yourself, that what doesn't matter actually what's going to happen, what the universe might throw at me, whatever it is, I'll deal with it. I've dealt with everything else up till now and I'm still here. So I can deal with this, whatever this new thing is. And if the new thing is, I've lost my job or I've lost my business and now I've got a blank slate and I don't know what to do, you'll figure it out. There's always something, you know, you don't just cease to exist. You'll reinvent yourself in some way. And the more you do that kind of thing, the more you believe that you can do it. So he says, the ultimate misery is living a life that is not our own. Mm-hmm. So if you've ever felt like that you're a plaything in somebody else's agenda, that's not a fun place to be. And so when you can rediscover or reaffirm your sense of control over your own life and your destiny, it's a very liberating feeling, and very much it allows then the creative juices to come in. It allows that to happen because you've created space for it to happen. I need to take this advice from my own words here. So unfortunately, most oppression comes not from others, but from a source we least suspect. Get my words jumbled up this morning. Ourselves. So self-oppression is the condition of letting our own negative thoughts and actions restrict us. It is an inside job, a burdening of our spirit by incessant doubt, worry, fear, and distraction. We definitely are only going to get this chapter done. I'm not going to go on to the next one today because we're coming up to time. So this is why we seek personal growth, to be free from the pain we cause ourselves, to make better choices, to feel better about who we are becoming, to act more confidently in social situations, and to unleash our full creativity and contribution into the world in order to make our highest difference. Gaining personal freedom in this sense is letting go of any self-doubt and self-loathing and allowing ourselves permission to be our unique, powerful, authentic selves. We do sometimes have to actually give ourselves permission, don't we? It's like, it's okay to put your hand up and speak at a public meeting or something. It's okay to be the one who's going to express an opinion, or it's okay to be the one who backs yourself to volunteer for something or to do something that feels uncomfortable. And as I said before, it's only when we take on these challenges that we realize we can. we did it and we didn't die last time, so we can do again, we can do something new, we can do something different. So freedom requires responsibility to choose who we are above and beyond our immediate impulses, needs, and social pressures, so that we can genuinely express the type of person we want to be, live the life we truly want to live, leave the legacy we desire. Just as freedom does not mean the release of responsibility, it also does not necessarily mean the absence of struggle. So we have to sort of accept that in gaining our freedom, there may be some struggle involved. Well, there usually is. There's usually some discomfort. There's usually discomfort, meaning we're stepping outside our comfort zone of conformity, of what's safe, what we know, what's familiar. And right back to our caveman days, it's being the one who goes outside to face the dinosaurs outside the cave, rather than sitting around by the comfy fire talking nonsense to each other, which was, you know, their version of Netflix. So it's not merely freedom from bad things that limit us, but freedom to experience good things that awaken us. So do we focus on the stuff that is scary and might hold us back, or do we focus on where we want to go and what we want to achieve and why we want to achieve it? That's the flick of the switch in our minds, is going in the direction we want to go rather than settling for being stuck where we don't want to be. So it's that human drive to transcend. Here's a very interesting point, is in our last moments, all that we have suffered for and suffered from shall be released as our souls slip into the ultimate freedom of the divine. That is it. In life, we seek freedom. In death, we are released into its vastness. Well, none of us know, because none of us have actually been. Oh, actually, sorry, I stand corrected. Glenn's been there and come back again. But for the rest of us, we don't know what it's like to slip into the ultimate vastness. And but it's an interesting thought, isn't it? One day we're going to have to confront that ultimate movement out of our comfort zone of being who we are in this body that we're living in, and go somewhere else. So there's the ultimate challenge, isn't it? One day, whatever your personal views are on that one. But to achieve and sustain personal freedom, we must dedicate ourselves to self-mastery. We must determine and discipline our own motivations to stay true to our own sense of self, to our own path. So this work that we're going to do on ourselves as we work through this book, this work will require that we finally declare who we are and what we want. Powerful stuff, huh? It will require the courage to defeat the internal demons that defy our greatness. It will require the willingness to advance with abandon beyond our own comfort zones. It will require new practices of joy and a greater sense of gratitude. It will require that we refuse to break our integrity when faced with hardship. That's powerful. So this personal freedom is the thing that we're working towards, the genuine life full of vibrancy and meaning. That is his aim in this book, to inspire us to seek that for ourselves. Your thoughts, people?
Interesting that you raised that. Yeah, with my personal situation, I'm working with someone professionally every couple of weeks, and he's very strong into the Eastern teachings. And I'm sort of saying, well, I'm here at the moment. Maybe I wouldn't have been here. Was there a connection that was lost? Is you know, everything still wired properly? And I'm not sure. You know, we know where we are and how we're sort of going. We had rough plans for retirement and that sort of stuff. But there's something, I feel something greater that I'm here to do. What that is, I don't exactly know what it is. And he just says to me, time and time again when I bring it up, he just goes, well, just sit with it. Don't go looking for it. It will find you. Don't spend too much time searching and looking for ideas and, you know, whatever else, whatever you are where you're meant to be right now, and that will come to you. Just and he just finishes off, just sit with it. And that comes pretty much from the Dalai Lama as well. It's just, it'll come. Doesn't mean lay in bed and do nothing, but just, you know, carry on your path where you are at the moment, and whatever is meant to be will be there for you. So yeah,
wise words. Just for Wendy's benefit, who might not know your history, Glenn had a cardiac arrest and actually left us for a little while and then was brought back again. It's
Well, I'm very happy that happened, that you came back.
yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here again.
we're all happy that it happened. It's curious that in some ways maybe it takes an extreme situation like yours, actually losing your life, or knowing someone who has, someone who's close to you, to actually make you stop and think about your own mortality. The question I suppose that Brendon's asking in this book is, why wait till you either have a heart attack or you're facing the prospect of dying before you think, hang on, what do I want out of this life? You know, we have that opportunity today, right now, to start thinking, what do I want? We can't change the past because that's gone, obviously, but from today onwards, we can actually sit and think about it. And something he goes on to recommend more of is you know, journaling and reflecting. And James Allen said, you know, men simply do not make time to think. This is our biggest challenge, is do we actually stop and get away from the busyness of life and all this distraction that goes on, and allow ourselves time to think, what's really important to me? Who am I? Where am I going? What do I really want? What's the legacy I want to leave? What matters? One useful exercise is to write your own obituary and see, what would you want people to say about you after you've gone? That's an interesting one. I'm not sure which of you had your hand up first, but V, yep.
Yeah, just in the aspect of journaling, I have actually started occasionally to write out, what do I want? Just ask myself the question and start writing. And then I'll ask why, and I'll keep asking why until I feel like I've got to the really big picture.
Very good. And it's often a series of pennies dropping, isn't it? It's not necessarily you have this revelatory moment where one day you figure out your entire life and it's just bing, it all falls into place. You know, it may be that you realize, will you eliminate some of the things you don't want? And then you work through a process. And so by keeping on asking the question, the answer will come to you. It's not, and like Glenn said, let it come to you. It will come to you when you're ready to receive it. So yeah, great point. Wendy.
I love that Veronica just brought that up, because the author of the book that you were reading the last time we were here had written a book that had to do with something about why.
Yes, Simon Sinek. Why? Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually ended up going backwards because I thought it would be better if I listened to that first before I actually embarked in the other book. And one of the things he talks about is the Fibonacci calculation, and that everybody starts at the what and the how, but they never really focus on the why. And the stronger the why, the calculation is bigger, and the what and the how is in the same proportion of the why. And I thought it's really just turned my head to say, you know what, if I'm going to decide to do something, the first thing I'm going to do is ask why.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that, you know, I just wanted to say about that. And because that was so strong, I totally lost my whole other thought process. Oh, I'm doing Think and Grow Rich, and one of the things it keeps talking about is the definite purpose and desire and everything. And I'm having trouble reconciling that, because I don't have a desire I can put into words. I do have a desire, and I'm sure of it, but I don't have words to describe it. And I lack the vocabulary, is what I keep telling people. I don't have the vocabulary, but I can tell you it's there and it's burning. Otherwise, I wouldn't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to study and meditate. I wouldn't be on these Zoom calls, you know, and I wouldn't be who I am. So I just, like Glenn said, I'm just going to sit and wait on that and let that just come to me when it's time.
Yeah, I think that it's okay to do that. You give yourself permission to reflect on it, and don't expect, just because you're asking the question, that you're immediately going to have the right answer pop into your head. Sometimes it is a process of discovery. And you know, the analogy of you climb a mountain peak and then you can see the next peak from that peak. You couldn't see it until you got to that peak. So it's a series of peaks that you can see a little bit higher and a little bit further. I certainly had that experience years ago. I climbed Uluru, and you kept feeling, oh, it must be near the top now, and then you get to the crest of the ridge and there's another hill there. So it was a long walk. Life can be like that. It can be a series of discoveries, or you know, as we said, pennies dropping sometimes as well. It's I think there's a lot of pressure put on us way too young to go, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? You'll start asking you at college, when I was, you know, in high school, so what are you going to do with your life? And your parents would be asking you, and their friends would be asking you. I don't know. I think I used to say I haven't decided what I'm going to be yet till I grow up, and I was still about 40 and still trying to figure that out. You can be who you are without having to, you're not defined by the job that you're doing necessarily. That might just be what you're doing to earn an income. And these days you can earn multiple incomes, and that's a sensible move to go as well. If you've got a few different income streams, you're not just dependent on that one thing.
That's one of the main reasons I left the role that I was in London, was all about who the guys were sitting in the office, not who they were personally. And some of the guys, including myself, just end up being so shallow. You just, you know, talking about, you know, what the job was, and that's all it was. And it wasn't until we went out with partners that the girls would go, "You guys just talk about work all the time.
Yeah.
Who are you really?" And that was it. And now it's just that, you know, this is what I do. Oh yeah, we have a business as well. And it's not about, you know, what the business is or anything else like that. It plays a major part in our life, but it's more about, you know, who we are more than anything else. And yeah, I was always, you know, what are you going to do when you grow up? You know, what are you going to do when you grow up? And I think I even said to my mum the other day, I said, well, look, I'm not going to start acting my age because I've never been this age before.
Very good. Wendy, you got your hand up still? Did you want to add something? Well, we're over time, ladies and gentlemen, so thank you so much for your attendance and contributions to that. And I definitely was over ambitious on what I expected us to get through today, but that's all right. I think realistically, if we went for the next two chapters, which is on fear and on motivation, I think it was, wasn't it? Yes. That would be a reasonable chunk to get through. And if you get further, that's great. And if you don't get it all done, that's okay too. We'll still love you just the same. And there's no naughty corner. No one gets to have to put the dunce's cap on or anything. So I hope that's been useful. Does anyone want to add any last thoughts or realizations that you've got from this morning's discussion and from that introduction and that first chapter there on freedom? Big topic, freedom.
Just glad I made the decision to jump on today and had some time to do it. It always seems to work that way. When I need something like this, then I seem to, it's like the time is made available for me. So thanks.
That's the universe bringing it to you, Glenn. Well done.
Yep.
You guys are all starting your day with it. I get to have my slumber with it. So can't wait for that, because I'll be going to bed and this will be the last thing I did for the day. And that's a good thing to fall asleep to.
Very good.
So,
Well, sleep well. Thank you for joining us. B, did you want to add anything?
No, just good to see you all again. And yeah, I'll be making it next week too, I'm sure.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Ali, are you still with us?
Thank you.
Zero on mute.
Yes, thank you. I have nothing to add.
Okay, no worries. Well, thank you all for your contribution. And I think you'll find this is a really, really powerful book. And certainly if you treat it as not just a book to read, but also something you can actually use and apply in your life, there'll definitely be some interesting lessons come out of it. So if nothing else, it's challenging you to think, and hopefully we're distilling some of this wisdom from Brendon Burchard, and you're getting a lifetime of learning from him distilled down into a few hours of discussion. Thanks very much, guys. See you same time next week.
Thank you.
See you later, guys.